Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April 9th Oklahoma City Planning Commission meeting. If you have pagers, cell phones, similar devices, if you would silence those now for us, we would appreciate that. If you are not the applicant and you have come to talk to us about a case today, there are sign-up sheets. They're on the table right outside the chambers here. If you would fill it out and give it to one of our clerks here, we'll be happy to hear you when we hear the case. And with that, we'll go to approval of the minutes. We have two sets, March 12th and March 26th.
Move approval of March 12th minutes.
Need a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the March 12th minutes. I'm not voting. I was not here. Cast your votes. Those minutes are approved.
And move approval of the March 26th minutes.
We have a motion and a second to approve the March 26th minutes. Cast your votes. Well, we had 7 people here last time. Okay, 5 does it. They're approved. And continuance requests, JJ.
There were several continuances today. First is item 24, PUD 1577, defer to April 23rd. Item 25, PUD 1576 to May 14th. Item 26, C6702 to May 14th. Item 27, C6708 to May 14th. Item 28, PC 10414 to May 14th. Item 29, SPUD 813 to May 14th. And item 30, SP 477 has been withdrawn.
Anyone come down today to talk to us about any of the items just read, items 24 through 30? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the uncontested continuances. Cast your vote. That's approved. Mike? Okay, thank you.
Okay, new continuance requests include item 12, C6679 to May 28th. Item 13, C6678 to be withdrawn. Item 14, C6713 to April 23rd. Item 20, SPUD 812 to April 23rd, and item 21, SPUD 814 to April 23rd.
Anyone come today to talk to us about the items just read, 12, 13, 14, 20, or 21?
If the applicant is here for 20, is the applicant here for item 20? Okay.
Take a motion. We have a motion and a second for the additional continuances. Cast your vote. That's approved. Any continuance requests from the public today? Hearing none, we'll go to the consent docket. JJ?
Consent docket today, item 1, ABC 830. It's for an ABC2 overlay at 6920 West Reno. Item 2, ABC 831 for an ABC2 overlay at 2323 Southwest 29th Street. CE 904 is to close a 10-foot platted utility easement at 2705 Kathleen's Crossing. And item 14 is PUD SP 1515C, which is a specific plan, the third one for the Chisholm Creek development at 13230 Pawnee Drive.
No one has signed up on any of these items, Commissioners.
I'll move approval, but I just have, sorry, John, I have one comment. On item 3, I know that this is the second one of these, not necessarily in the same subdivision, but where we've had a home builder construct a home over an easement. I don't want to consider 2 a trend, but that seems to be something that we might want to have a closer look at when they're laying the foundation out so we don't get to this point. It's kind of alarming to me. Move approval of the 4 items on the consent docket.
Need a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Cast your votes. That's approved. Thank you.
The first item for public hearing is item 5, PUDSP 1544. It's a specific plan located at 13100 North Western Avenue.
Brandon Kuhn with Hewitt Zollers, 2832 West Wilshire, representing the applicant. We're coming back with our specific plan, as we said we would do in our PUD. The one small change that we're asking to be handled administratively is a change in the EFS percentage, and we're asking for that so that we can get our energy rating. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No one signed up, Commissioners?
This is, I'm sorry Brian is not the one that's here today, because I don't want him to think I'm beating up on him unfairly, but I think this is the same development that came to the Board of Adjustment for a sign on not this property, but the property closer to Western. And I had kind of a problem with it, not necessarily the sign actually, but just as a matter of process and procedure. You know, as we go through our review of these, we're very careful about the signage for these kinds of developments, and we're very specific and very clear about what's permitted and what's not permitted. So it struck me as odd, not in any way underhanded, not in any way, you know, trying to abuse the process, but that what was before us then was a request to put a sign for this development out closer to the Turnpike Service Road. So I think, you know, this is something that we may see more of along Memorial Road as more development occurs out there. And it's something that perhaps we should, as a commission, give some thought to whether we can and whether we want to, you know, do something about that. If we're going to be so careful and concerned about the signage specific to a development, is there any way to control or to obtain commitment that that'll be all the signage there is? Mm-hmm. That request was for a non-accessory sign, and it was in a piece of PUD 380 north of this, not in this PUD. And so, I mean, I had a question in my mind at the time about whether there was even really anything that could be done, but I think it's something we ought to think about. If we're going to be that concerned about signage and we're going to be that careful and controlled about what we allow and the commitments we get, you know, should we take that further step and really nail it down, and or can we? Does that make sense at least?
Obviously, you know, we like to have the best materials and the most, you know, attractive material you could put on a building. But when this was in the application, you're building a LEED certified building that I applaud in every building that can be LEED certified because the energy efficiency, et cetera, and that's when I kind of just overlooked what the EFIS material was, and I don't have enough knowledge at all to know whether or not you're saying that that's more energy efficient, similar to stucco, whether there's another more attractive material that can be used, you know, et cetera. I have no way of knowing, sure. And I have to believe you guys, yeah. You know. But I applaud the building of a LEED certified building. It just was what all buildings should be doing as much as they possibly can. And sometimes you have to sacrifice an appearance. And I wonder if you've noticed whatever the building is on Main Street, you know, it looks like, is that a jail parking lot or a parking facility, is that right? They have cantilevered extensions over every window. They come out about that far. And that's for the reflection so that you don't use electricity. The light reflects into the buildings. I mean, it's really, I'm assuming you're going to do as much of that kind of activity with this building as you can. So I'm just kind of closing my eyes to this thing and saying, go for it. And so, if there's no protest, I'm going to move approval for the application.
Is there a second? No one signed up. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 5. Cast your votes. And it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6 is SP 478, application by Branch Communications to erect a telecommunication tower at 600 Southwest Grand Boulevard.
Good afternoon. My name is Troy Williams. I'm with Branch Communications. Our office is at 1900 Northwest Expressway, Suite 1220. Branch is proposing a large communication facility, including a 150-foot tower at Capitol Hill High School. T-Mobile is the initial carrier going on that site. T-Mobile's build for their 14-15 was 50 sites. And out of the 50 sites, 30 are in the Oklahoma City Metroplex. Out of those 30, 27 were either colos or use by right sites. There's 3 sites that we've had to bring before the Planning Commission. One has already been approved, this site at Capitol Hill High School, and there'll be one more. The reason why I chose Capitol Hill High School, one, it's a 50-acre tract of land. There were some other areas up along Walker that I could have gone, but all the lots were small and would not have been able to meet the setbacks. At this location, I could have slid the site further to the east into the parking lot area and met all the requirements. However, it would have stuck out in the parking lot. So trying to do the right thing and work with the school board, there's a grove of trees in this location, and this will buffer the residents to the south as well as to the east. And there's the active oil field with the pump jacks and the oil tanks directly. Our site literally is up against that fence, so that drawing shows a little gap there. And we're across the street from the ball fields. And it's proposing a 150-foot monopole, which will they also have lights at the football stadium and the baseball field. So it's the same type of design. I know the tract is zone residential, and we try to find a site in commercial that works. This site works for T-Mobile because it's centrally located in the gap they're trying to cover the whole. 150 feet will cover everything to the north, to the south, and east and west, as well as in-building coverage, not just be out and use your phone exterior. I do have George Wyrick and Jeff Tayloff of T-Mobile here to answer any technical questions as far as their coverage plots and patterns, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
One comment and one question.
Yes, sir.
Comment would be, you found school property, and we've encouraged you in the past to look at schools, look at city-owned property. You've done so here, to be commended for that. My question is, 150 feet, do you really need 150 feet?
Well,
or can you live with less? Light poles at the stadiums, I doubt are 150 feet
no,
tall.
not quite. Same type. I think they're 70 feet at the football stadium.
But they're not 100 and a half.
They are, no, sir. We wanted 150 feet so we could and I'll have RF describe this in technical terms if you like, but in layman's terms, 150 feet gives us the ability to down tilt the antennas slightly to actually get better penetration and actually covers more area. Yes, we could do 140 if that's a concern. We could do that. It's just, and plus we're building the tower to co-locate for multiple carriers, but 140 will still allow that. Yes, sir.
The lights on the ballpark, how tall are the lights? They go on the ballpark?
70 feet.
The stadium lights.
They're anywhere, I believe they're around, they're a lot bigger, thicker than you think, but the top of them is probably around 70 feet, I believe.
70 feet, is that
I
right?
believe that's right.
And then how
Maybe
far,
75.
how far away is your location from those houses to the south?
To the south, 366 feet. I think on the proposal I said 350. After we got the final survey and everything, I believe it's like 366. Say 360, just to be safe.
Well, I think that I'm kind of repeating what Nick said about the height of it. Can you go lower? Because you've got these people that live to the south, and then they were looking at 70-foot stadium lights. They're used to that. And so if you have just another 35, 40 feet more, well, it's not a 150-foot thing way up there with stuff all on top of it. I think it's just reduce it on the side, the size of it. I'd be in favor of that.
In our tower, per FAA, we don't have to light it either, just...
They get a dramatic increase in coverage, which would probably suggest that they won't need as many additional poles down the road. And
Go ahead.
once something like a monopole is there for a while, you no longer see it. I mean, those things just become invisible like all the other things you think will bother you until they're there.
I don't know that I would argue for 10 feet, frankly. You know, if this was a difference between a 150-foot and a 100-foot pole, yeah. But 140, 150, I'd just soon get the additional coverage and go ahead and tilt your antenna.
I just wonder if the public is as sensitive to these poles, as John indicates, as maybe we are. I mean, frankly, I think as more and more people go to cellular and mobile devices, that the demand, and doing away with landlines, I mean, there's more and more homes now that I think potentially the public argument is always going to be in favor of better access to better coverage. I think it's shifting away from maybe what it was 5, 6, certainly 10 years ago. I've not done any analysis on that, but it causes me to pause and go, I think maybe that argument, the tide has turned on that potentially. And I agree with you, Nick, 10 feet's not going to make any difference to anybody.
Well, and going back to what John said, I have, over the years, asked people about that. And, no, I think we're much more sensitive to them than the general public is. And John's point is well made. Yeah, they put the thing up yesterday, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. And 6 months from now, I don't even see it, is what people tell me.
Well, you know, in this particular location, if there's a good place for a pole, there's a good place for a pole.
It really is.
And, you know, most people don't know that the flag poles are, the big round flag poles are actually antennas. They don't know that. If there's no other discussion, there's no...
I wanted to actually ask that question that the chairman had hypothesized. By going up higher, are you limiting in any way the number of poles that you need?
Yes, ma'am. And on the propagation maps that were submitted, I believe in your package, if you drop the tower down, it leaves a gap to the north and into the south, that in-building gaps as well, not just gap in outdoor coverage. And for every 10 feet down, you can just keep coming. It's not 10 feet shorter, it's a lot. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And plus, this allows for co-location for multiple carriers on this location. In the compound 60 by 60, of course, we'll landscape anyway, even though it's buffered by trees on two sides and the oil field. We're still going to landscape. We're also going to match the fencing that the baseball field put in. Ours is going to be 8 feet per code, but it'll be the black rubber type coated fence, so it kind of looks like it belongs instead of the big chain link.
Are there other carriers on your pole?
Not at this specific time, but there will.
There will be?
There will be.
Okay.
Anything further? No one signed up?
Move to approve the application.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 6. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
Thank you.
Item 7, C6714, final plat of North Penn Edition, located west of Pennsylvania Avenue and north of Northwest 150th Street.
Good afternoon. Steve Rollins, Arc Engineering Consultants, 150 Deer Creek Road in Edmond, representing the applicant. We are in favor of all the TEs, except we're requesting a variance for TE number 3, and also requesting that TE number 4 be deleted, which I can explain and we can discuss if that's okay.
Well, are you willing to do something with respect to TE4 that would permit turnarounds until that other road is completed?
Yes, sir. I brought a large copy of the drawing here. This is how the site is proposed to be laid out now and in the future. This is section 1 here, which we're discussing today. Here is North Penn Parkway, where the turnaround has been requested. As you can see, this will be a collector-style road, but it will eventually go all the way through the center of the property and tie back into Penn Avenue. Also, this restaurant and retail site plan has recently been submitted for building permit review and approval, so there's ample opportunity for the fire truck to turn around in the very near future here, and then also later on in the turnaround.
So how will you do the turnaround until the street's completed? We just like it.
They could turn into the retail site here, which will also have the street over here.
JJ, is that what you were? Okay. Staff's okay with that. I want to make sure.
Okay. I did call the fire marshal's office and sent them an email, but have not received a reply yet from them to discuss it. But
That may be what JJ's checking on right
Okay.
now, because there's somebody from the fire marshal's office in the conference room.
I understand.
Commissioners, no one has signed up. Other discussion?
One question, Mr. Chairman. There's a comment in our staff report that this is not, does not conform with all the requirements of the subregs. And I just want to clarify what the nonconformance is. If it's that variance request, I'm okay. If there's something else, I'd like to know about it.
No one has signed up. Commissioners, any other discussion?
One more question.
Yes.
The variance. You're asking for a variance,
Yes, sir.
and I look at this plat, and I say, why?
This is the street that we're requesting the variance on here. As you can see, it's a cul-de-sac style street. It won't continue across the drainage channel in the future. We will be extending sanitary sewer up to serve the lots, so there's another additional 15-foot UE that will be provided that would be allowed for any utilities that need to go in. A 26-foot street is all that would be required in there anyway, so it wouldn't even be a wider street. We just didn't see the need to go with a 60-foot right-of-way in this instance.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, this is a PUD 288, whenever that was, an old PUD that doesn't expire, as we've talked about, but is it subject to, for example, all the landscaping ordinances that we have currently?
Yeah.
You're not grandfathered into anything, but you have to comply with the landscaping ordinance that we have in effect. If we had a sign ordinance, there would be a sign ordinance in effect. I mean, they have to comply with what we have currently, right? No matter what the PUD says.
They have to comply with, like for landscaping, they would comply with the current code. In addition, if there was anything specific in the PUD for landscaping, they would meet that as well.
Okay.
But there could be something about signs in this old PUD that would control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my question. Yeah. So that wouldn't be overridden.
No.
Okay.
Now, it'd be whatever the PUD would allow for signage.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioners? We have variance to T number 3.
Can I just clarify that? If there is something specific in the PUD, if it says that it'll comply with the C3 regs or whatever, then that will be whatever's in effect now. Right?
Correct.
Approve variance T3.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance to TE3. Cast your votes. That's approved.
Move approval of the application. Deleting his TE4.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. And that's approved. Commissioners, I remind you to use your microphones, since someone may want to watch this later.
Item 8 is C6717, final plat of the Grove West Phase 8, located west of May Avenue and north of 178th Street.
Good afternoon, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates on behalf of the applicant. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, we had the preliminary plat of the Grove West before you, and it was approved. As part of that, we agreed that we would provide an emergency access in the area of Hazelmere, which I've marked that up and sent to the fire marshal, and we talked yesterday, and they're in agreement with the location we picked. So on the final plat, before it goes to council, we'll reflect this temporary access here. So this is Section 8, this is the west. But I brought this to show you that Section 9 and 10 are being designed right now, and both of those will be built at the same time. And at that time, it'll connect this and connect this, giving us the 3 access points on the Ring Drive. So I just wanted to assure the commission that we're well aware of the connectivity issue and number of lots issue. So we agree with all the TEs.
No one signed up, Commissioners?
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 8. Cast your votes. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 9, PUD 1580, application by Quail Ridge Senior Holdings to rezone 12401 Trail Oaks Drive.
Don Navard, 4800 North Lincoln Boulevard, on behalf of the applicant. This is an expansion of an existing facility which required us to create a PUD because the original zoning was way out of date. This was an O2 zoning and a C3 zoning. The additional expansion was for those who have been here long enough, detention pond that was required by the city when the shopping center, Homeland Shopping Center, at 122nd and May was built many years ago, which has been rendered and abandoned as a result of the drainage that was put in. And that drainage area was, when we looked at this, we recovered many shopping carts and bicycle parts and things like that. It's been used as a dump. And the owners of Quail Ridge were able to deal and negotiate the acquisition of this property from the 2 owners that owned it together, and now intend to expand the existing retirement center as set forth in the PUD.
Okay. Commissioners, no one signed up.
I had just one question. Under the signage regulations, my staff report says there shall be, and then there's an asterisk, and it says freestanding signs in this PUD. I assume what was supposed to go there was a number.
Well, there'll be 2 signs requesting. There's 1 sign existing because this new development will actually serve 2 purposes, memory care and assisted living, so we needed to have some direction to allow people to actually know where they're going there.
That was the purpose of TE5.
Oh, okay.
But if he wants 2, we need to amend TE5 to allow for the 2 signs.
I see.
That's correct.
Anything else, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval and amend TE5 to 2 signs. Our staff report doesn't indicate this, but oftentimes when we see staff reports, it talks about infill development. This is truly an infill development.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve item 9, amending TE5 to reflect 2 signs. Cast your votes. And that's approved.
Thank you.
Item 10, PUD 1575, application by BCG Investments to rezone 13701 West Memorial Road.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is the applicant and the engineer, Kendall Dillon. What we have is an application for a PUD on an approximately 80-acre site, and what we're asking for is a base of RA with a minimum lot size of 1 acre. And the commission might remember an application that came forth in October of 2014 on this exact same tract of land, and that application was for a straight RA zoning base. And what we've done here is we've basically mimicked what RA would require. We've got 1 acre lots, we've got the 40-foot front yard setback, except, as you know, in RA, you can actually go down to 0.88 acre lot, and here we have a minimum of a full 1 acre. So we think that this is in keeping with what the commission desires for developments. We think it's compatible with the area. We think it's consistent with what the comp plan calls for, and we'd ask for your approval. Now, there were 2 individuals that were here at the beginning. I think they were here seeking information. My client was able to visit with them, show them what the plan was. I believe they have been satisfied and actually have left. I'm happy to answer any questions.
David, you and I talked this morning.
Yes.
And the question was, well, what was the staff's concern? Why was it the RA recommended for approval by the staff, and why is this not? And I think they're, not to say this is how people are going to vote, but their concern had to do in part with pulling infrastructure out there, water in particular, which is going to just increase call for a lot more intense development and pull services that much further from the center of the city. And, of course, the city's got fiscal considerations that they need to be aware of. So I think that, in part, explains the difference in their conclusions.
Well, I still think that the fact that you have...
I'm not arguing that. I'm explaining it.
When we look at the October staff report, that's RA, but like I said, would allow 0.88 acre lots, and staff makes no negative comments and recommends approval. It seems a bit unfair to a developer to fast forward, do a PUD, exactly what this commission wants, committing to those things that this commission wants, and to now have concerns. The ironic thing with this application is the new plan would call for this to be urban reserve, calling for significantly more density. So I think the ability to have acre lots with what we proposed is a better solution for the city and for the area. Anybody that's driven out there, I would challenge you to call that area urban anytime. So I think what is before you is the most reasonable use of this property.
I wasn't arguing that.
No, I know. I just wanted to explain.
Just their point is, if you have water out there, you're going to get a lot of potential R1 development all around it because you've now got water.
Well, there's no sewer, and I can't imagine that that is coming ever anytime soon. So I don't know that it's fair to have concerns about this development on some uncertain concern that might happen at some undefinable point in the future. I think we have to vote on the application as presented here and not with undefined concerns.
I like how he explains it.
It's good to use your hands. I learned that from my 19-month-old. She's very handsy.
Okay, Commissioners, discussion. No one has signed up.
I'll move approval. I think the area is trending in this way. I think this is a suitable development for this particular tract of land, and it makes sense with clearly 1 acre, not versus standard RA. So I think it's a good development.
We have a motion and a second. David, notice my vote.
What's that?
Just notice my vote.
I appreciate that.
Item 11, C6667, preliminary plat of Timber Ridge Estates located south of Northwest Expressway and east of Frisco Road.
I'm going to keep my hands behind David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here again on behalf of the same applicant. We do agree with all of the TEs. We do need a variance to TE number 3. We have visited with Mr. Wilson in the Fire Marshal's office, and he is okay with this variance. So we would ask for approval of the variance and the application.
So we don't need an emergency access or anything like that? We just have the one access? Is all
correct?
Fires agreed with that?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have 2 people signed up.
Oh. I believe those are the 2 people that signed up and now have left.
And there are
You can call them.
Bobby Swinert and Jared, are you here?
Those are the two.
I guess they voted with their feet. Commissioners?
Okay, I move approval of variance TE3.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance TE3. Cast your votes. It's approved.
And I'll move the application.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve item 11. Cast your votes. And it's approved.
Items 12, 13, and 14 have been deferred. Item 15 is C-6694, final plat of Sienna Phase 2, located east of Cemetery Road, north of Southwest 29th Street.
Again, David Box, 522 Carport Drive, on behalf of the applicant. This is a final plat. This conforms to the preliminary plat. It has been continued several times. There were some neighbors that had submitted some concerns with drainage and had initially filed some protest. There was an attorney involved, and we were able to work with the attorney and come up with what I believe is a reasonable solution. So there are 6 technical evaluations, all of which we are in agreement with, and I'd like to add one which reflects the agreement that we have made with the neighbors to the south, and that is, and I'll submit this to staff, but so you guys know what we're agreeing to do, is we're going to deepen and widen the existing detention pond, as well as locate the weir so that it moves the channel and the outflow to one single point. And what we've done is we have calculated the outflow and gone back to what it was in its pre-development form, so that what's being discharged now is the true historical rate, that being in its when it was a field. And so I believe that goes above and beyond what is required in the drainage ordinance, and that seemed to satisfy the neighbors to the south.
That one signed up, Commissioners?
Do you have the exact language?
Yeah.
The new TE?
Yeah.
I think just for the record, just
Okay.
say what it is.
The applicant agrees to expand and deepen the existing detention pond and narrow the existing outlet weir, thereby reducing the pond outflow to pre-development runoff rate for the pond drainage basin.
I'll move for approval with the addition of that TE.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve item 15, adding TE7 as read into the record by David. Cast your votes. And that's approved.
Thank you.
Item 16 is PUD 1578, application by Sundance Airport to rezone 13,000 North Sarah Road.
Again, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates on behalf of the applicant. This was here 2 weeks ago before you, and the commissioners expressed some concern with regard to some of the uses that have been left in. So we went back and removed some uses, and the few uses that we left in made them ancillary to the airport itself. So that way, if there's a restaurant in the building, they can have, alcohol permitted, et cetera. And so those few uses are left in there. And there's 2 TEs. One's the boilerplate standard TE. The second one has to do with our application shows a 10-foot monument sign. And the reason why we wanted to stay with the 10-foot as opposed to the 8 standard is our entrance distance from 122nd Street is so far away from the intersection. It just gives us a little bit more height for somebody who's out there looking for where they're going. So that's why we're asking for the 10-foot in lieu of the 8 feet.
Okay, no one has signed up.
Tim, just to be really, really clear, you're going to leave eating establishments, fast food with drive-through order window in there? No limitation on it being ancillary to the airport? Is that what you said, or did I mishear you?
Neither one are. You've got fast food drive-in and industrial light not affiliated with an airport.
I apologize. I'm looking for my page. I'm not sure, JJ, we sent that in on the 30th. Are you all looking
Yeah,
at the same thing?
I think it's just one that you missed. I think he intended to make all of the other uses ancillary to the airport, and I think he just missed that one.
Yeah, I would concur. We would add that ancillary to the airport in there.
Okay, so those two, the light industrial and the eating establishment, fast food
Yes.
with drive-through window, ancillary to the airport.
Yes. I apologize, I thought we had them all covered.
A couple of weeks ago, well, on Janice's point about, by adding ancillary to airport, we get the drive-in window thing. I'm still wondering what a fast food drive-in restaurant is when it's ancillary to an airport. I'm going to taxi up in my,
No.
throw me a cheeseburger as I go by?
The goal of this PUD was to allow for some residential to occur with the live overhanger and for the medical services that want.
No, but we're back talking about fast food.
No, I understand. So there's going to be more people in here, and so the applicant wanted the ability to, if they were, somebody wanted to put in a coffee shop, that they could physically go up and not have to go in and sit down and get a cup of coffee.
And the other thing, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the number of living units. You said, maybe 100. We talked about limiting those. I didn't see
At this
any.
point, they haven't had us do any kind of a final design on the number of units. We're estimating approximately 100. That's all that would fit on there. But if it turns out to be 102, generally, I think that's where we're going, but it's going to be limited based on...
Well, I noticed no language in here about that limitation.
Right. It's going to be physically limited by the area that's available and the setbacks required on the runway. The project is intended to start on the southeast corner, which you can see it's a fairly narrow strip by the time you take a step back from the runway. So it's going to be a narrow run of units.
Okay.
So if we put a ceiling on it, could we say it'll be no more than whatever that number is that you're comfortable with?
Sure. 200?
100.5?
100.5? Yeah, we don't have a problem saying that there's going to be a cap. I just don't know what that is. I'd be guessing at this point. But if you want to put not to exceed 200 units, 200 units in this area is not...
I think Nick wants 100 units. He's back at 100.
Well, no, 100 is fine. I can go 100, 150. If you think it's going to be 100, I'd increase it by 50%. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to count units here.
If for some reason it changes, we'll come back.
Come back, okay.
So we'll make that a T number 3?
We can do that.
150?
Cap the units at 150.
Okay.
My comment, Mr. Chairman, is what, Nick, you're talking about. What exactly a fast food drive-through order window is ancillary to an airport when I can anticipate it's going to be on Sarah Road, right over there on the edge, that has nothing to do with the airport. It has whoever going to come up and down Sarah Road. I don't think you need that, and I would prefer that be eliminated from this application. And maybe later on, if you can show how that's going to work within the airport operation, because you've got guys flying in, flying out, they're staying in these places, there's a restaurant and another restaurant, drive-through, that's on Sarah Road, and that becomes a concern to me because this becomes an industrial use whole area that just opens the door wide open to a lot of other things that would occur on these places that are double A. I would really prefer that be something that you can talk about maybe later, because I can't see where that definition of a drive-through, window ordering, like Nick said, my airplane flies up and order a cheeseburger. It's a commercial activity that's on Sarah Road, and it really I can't see how that's going to be ancillary to an airport operation. I would prefer you delete that.
Well, the applicant, as I mentioned earlier, has anticipated most of these units, these live-in units, will also have vehicles. They're going to leave parked there. And rather than have them, leave, there's no commercial use anywhere near this airport. You have to go several miles in any direction. It's not the intent to develop commercial along Sarah Road. There's not enough traffic to warrant.
Okay, would you agree that particular use would not be located on Sarah Road?
I think we can say that.
Another thing, before any building permits are issued, you'll see it will come back here
Right.
for a specific plan.
site plan approval.
You'll be able to see it at that time, too.
Yes, but if there isn't any discussion now about where on the property you might cite that, you don't have any control when you come in with a site-specific plan. I think if you describe it as being internal to the airport,
Well, Tim, and that's where I was going with, Tim. This airport property is somewhat restricted. I can't just drive around the airport. So are we thinking this fast food drive window is going to be part of an existing building or a freestanding building? Can we restrict it to, other airport buildings?
Well, we were hoping the term ancillary to the airport use would describe it as not having its own driveway along Sarah Road, or, it's going to be part of the interior of the airport use.
Well, sure, but the interior of the airport right now, obviously, if I come in, the only way in is off of Sarah Road, and I can drive pretty much north and south parallel to the operation for the entire length of the airport. So we could strip out, if you will, want to use that term, we could strip out Sarah Road and the airport could continue to function. That's what Bob's talking about, and that...
Well, that's not going to happen, but we'll just take it out. Just take that use out. I don't necessarily agree with the mentality of it, but we'll agree to take it out just so we can move on, because that's something that may come in the next several years.
okay. Any further discussion? No one signed up.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let me take a run at this. Move approval of the application deleting 8300.36, adding to any of the uses that were missed that they are ancillary to the airport facility only, and adding TE3, cover the maximum number of living or dwelling units, be 150.
Okay.
Are we deleting TE2? Are we deleting TE2?
Yeah, freestanding signs will be, how many feet did you want, Tim?
10.
10?
That's what's in the plan.
Okay, let's talk about that. I'm driving down Sarah Road, and for a mile on the east side of Sarah Road is this airport. And that's all that's there.
Right.
So
The
what
sign is
kind-
to depict the entrance location.
Well, my point is, we're going to have a sign out there for the entrance. I got it. But if I'm going to the airport, there it is. I'm going to find it. Why do we need the extra 2 feet?
Why not?
Well, then,
What's magic about 8?
why not
You
make
said
it
somebody
100
picked
feet? Put a red light on it, and make the FAA happy.
Flashing red light. So,
Well,
the applicant would like it to be 10 feet. That's what we're asking for.
there is absolutely no, in fact, I would venture a guess that if I turned onto Sarah off of Northwest Highway and I drove north to the city limits on Sarah Road, I would not find one sign. And in this mile from 122nd to Memorial, the only thing there on the east side of the road is the airport.
No, disagree. I mean,
why?
it's just I agree with you. There is nothing out there. The opportunity to have a little bit taller sign to allow for it to be seen at night from the intersection is just something they've desired. If that's going to make or break the case, we'll stay with 8. I just don't think it's out of the question to ask for the additional 2 feet.
Well, it's not a make or break with me either. It sounds like it may be a make or break with some other commissioners, however. And I guess I don't understand the real need. He feels he has a need. Everybody wants a bigger sign, but
I mean, we're not asking for 15 or 20 feet.
No, I
Just a few
understand,
feet,
and like I said, for me, it's not a make or break. But, you know, say at night, an airport, there's certain airport lighting at all times, and certain airport restrictions. You can't make it too bright, or somebody may zero in on it.
So we're leaving the TE as is?
I'll move approval with the TE in effect and make everybody, except Tim, happy.
All right, now I'm confused. Are we at 8 feet or 10?
We are going to add TE3, limiting the usage. We're going to leave TE2 in.
Which is the 8-foot sign.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. We're going to approve item 16 as conditioned, taking out the use for heating established drive-through windows.
Right.
Putting a limit of 150 dwelling units
As TE3.
as a TE, and leaving this sign at 8 feet.
Yeah, leaving TE2 intact.
Okay, that's the motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. That's approved.
Item 17 is PUD 1579, application by Family Broadcasting Group to rezone 9548 North Morgan Road.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. We have an application before you that is the old KSBI studio site. What we are applying for is a PUD that would allow a office park development and some uses associated with those. We do have a couple of TEs that we are in agreement with, 1, 2, and 3. We would not be in agreement with 4 and 5. What we've asked for is 12 feet rather than what a traditional office park might be or commercial development. We have some unique circumstances on site with multiple towers that are 100 plus feet tall. We have water towers that are in excess of 35 feet, I believe, buildings that are, I believe, in excess of 20 feet. So we think 12 feet is certainly reasonable, certainly appropriate for an office park that will be approximately 10 acres in size. Be happy to answer any questions.
I'm certainly in favor of TE number 5, David. There's no reason along that stretch of road that we need to introduce electronic message boards.
We'll take out EMDs.
Okay, thank you. No one has signed up, commissioners.
What's the sign competition? Again, you said water towers. That's not a sign competition. What's on that road on, where are we, Mustang Road? That's just a minute. And you're on the Kirkpatrick Turnpike.
Yeah, the significant question is, where will the signs go? Are they going to be on Morgan Road or along the Turnpike, or both?
No, they're along Morgan.
Will you clarify that?
The PUD says the number of freestanding signs along North Morgan Road shall not exceed 2. And so the language of the PUD...
How many?
2.
12 foot.
Yes, sir.
Is there a drop-off off the turnpike? In other words, is your land lower than what the turnpike is?
I believe it's fairly level. But like I said, the signs would be on Morgan. And so you'd have signs, building, and then the turnpike. And so as you drive along the turnpike...
Turnpike will be, when you look from the turnpike, you'll see the back of the building.
Correct.
You've got a 10-acre site, so it's a pretty good-sized site, and 2 signs along Morgan Road is not too much.
No, and it also is not going to be highly visible or visible from the turnpike.
Yeah. No, and also you said the EMD signs aren't going to be in this application.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, we're willing to keep TE5 in if we can delete TE4.
Well, leave TE4 in and change it to 12.
Well, if we delete TE4, it just reverts the language that specifies 12 feet as written in the PUD.
Okay.
Can I ask, I had a little bit of trouble understanding why an office park, if that's what we're developing here, needs eating establishments, sit down, limited alcohol. I can understand maybe a sandwich shop or something like that in an office park, but it seems to me that if you're going to have that kind of restaurant facility there, you're really talking about commercial activity as opposed to office.
Well, what we've done is we've taken out the fast food and the drive-through, the types that generate a lot of traffic. Our thought is that in connection with an office park, it might make sense to have some restaurants. There's a bunch of residential to the west, and so we think it is a good site for the sit-down type of eating establishment.
I don't dispute that it's a good thing. I just think that it turns it into a commercial venture. It's not really an office park if there are restaurants there, I don't think.
Well, I don't think the market would dictate there to be a significant amount of restaurants. I think you might have one to go alongside with an office park. I don't think it would be a true commercial development. If you look at the uses, we've significantly limited the number of uses that are permitted.
But you're not limiting the number of restaurants that could go in there.
That's correct. I think the market will do that, and I don't anticipate you'd have Restaurant Row out on Morgan, south of Northwest Highway.
It's not where I'd invest in a restaurant, and I've invested in restaurants, and this is not going to develop into a row of restaurants. It's just, location is too hard to get to, unless it's for people immediately in the immediate area. You don't have ready access from the turnpike to this location at all. So by the time you realize there was a restaurant there, you'd be gone 70 miles an hour.
No, but there's a substantial amount of residential development out there, John.
Yeah, so maybe a restaurant might wind up on that site along with other things, but it's not going to be intense restaurant development there.
And like you said, by the time you realize it there, you're closer to Restaurant Row on Memorial as you go along the turnpike.
I guess, do you own the property to the south of you?
No, I believe we just own the 10-acre site.
Just the 10. And so other than the radio tower there, I guess is a adjunct here, how far off of Britton and Morgan are you?
Well, we front on Morgan, and
right.
The old studio, is in that picture, is actually right there, fronts along Morgan. And so to access it, you would exit the Kilpatrick on Wilshire,
right.
Have to travel down Northwest Highway for a half mile, and then double back down South Morgan Road.
Mm-hmm. So how far off of you? I guess my point is, with respect to the property that's back to the north, across Britton, that's C3? Is that right?
Boy, I'm not sure where
Looks like it. It's C3 and O2. Is that right? Excuse me. I'm sorry, David. To the west, it's R1.
Yeah, to the west, there are two residential developments. Yeah. It's all residential as you come south from the Northwest Expressway on the west side. On the east side, you've got a series of water towers and the studios.
The corner at Britton and Morgan, though, is that C3? I can't tell from our staff report. Just that.
It's a PUD that I believe allows C3 commercial.
So that commercial then is probably up at the top. On the corner, right?
Yes, it probably fronts on
Britton and Morgan.
Do we know?
The only question I would have about, look, I'm not saying I think we need to take it into consideration. We need to at least be sure we know what we're doing. I don't necessarily object. We probably should have a restaurant out in this area because there's no other neighborhood services. However, if you assume that looking at this picture here, that the commercial corner stops back at the terminus of 99, then if you go into, you've effectively extended commercial uses on up the section line there. Don't know if it's an issue. I'm just saying that that's effectively what's happened.
Well,
With that one use. I'm asking, is that the impact of the alcohol, the restaurant use and the hotel use, for example?
I don't know that we've really extended commercial use. When I think of commercial, I think more of retail, things that are going to generate additional traffic. I think what you have with these uses are traffic generated from people already there or people who will be here on site. You know, commercial, I think we always believe we're trying to generate more development, generate interest, bring people to the site. I don't think the uses here accomplish that.
Well, and going back to what the chairman said, it's pretty hard
to get to.
A strip of restaurants along there. And we're talking about the restaurant use.
Well,
And the hotel use as well. I mean, my point actually was that this is an O2 General Office District PUD, at least on its face, but it has these commercial components, and I just think it's important for us to be aware of that, think of it in those terms, and think about whether that's what we want here.
right. Because we are also including liquor store, lodging, retail sales and service, general retail sales and service.
These are not permitted.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
permitted.
Thanks, Janice, for clarifying. I got it. I was looking at the wrong list. Okay.
But it does have hotels.
Only the hotel and restaurant are what I would consider commercial uses.
Yeah.
And probably, given those limited uses, it's probably not what I would consider to be a deep extension of commercial past the corner. But it's something we ought to at least be aware of.
It's also probably not where you're going to put a hotel.
No. Yeah. Can't get to it. I don't have any other comments. Okay. After that diversion, I will move for approval of the application, deleting TE 4 with respect to the sign, and then, of course, leaving TE 5. No EMD.
Need a second?
Are we going to eliminate TE4 or just amend it?
The language in the PUD covers 12-foot signs.
Yeah.
So
To be clear, though, we don't want signs necessarily on the back side of the property.
No, it says 2 signs along Morgan Road.
Yeah.
2 signs along Morgan Road only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Everybody clear, ready to vote? Cast your votes. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 18 is PVO 93, application by Milagro Property to vacate Common Area A and a plat note relating to installation of automatic fire sprinkler systems north of 122nd Street, east of MacArthur Boulevard.
My name is Dennis Fox, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. And I know this has been debated several times, so I don't want to go through too much detail, but I think it's important. Brent Lowell just handed out an exhibit that is the Google map, and I think what's important is to make sure that this commission understands that what has changed and what we're dealing with is a scenario where previously our access was going to go through the high-density area, which does have sprinklers for the developers to the west. That has been changed at the request of both Mr. Lowell and the developers, and the access now is going to go straight as shown by that aerial. What that does is it provides that our lots will be exactly the same as the lots which focus on that common area and are on the east side of the development, which does not require, according to the plat that you all looked at and revised. Originally, on that plat, there was a requirement for a sprinkler system. Came before this commission, and the commission voted and decided to do away with the sprinkler system here, and here. So all we're asking for is that this bubble be extended. We've taken out our access, which was through the high-density area, and now we just take it through this bubble. So we just want to be treated just like all of these lots. From a standpoint of fire safety, we think we should be treated just like this group. We're not high density like this group. There was a lot of discussion in the previous meetings about an agreement, and we think there was an agreement, and we think it was the correct agreement, and we would ask that you approve our amendments to the plat. Questions, if there are any?
No one signed up, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I just point out a couple of things from a history standpoint. When this was first laid out, there wasn't any sprinkler requirement, and they were all large lots. And the development was well under the number that we felt was necessary or required for sprinkling. Market changed, they came back and wanted to add that high-density portion up on the north side. And as part of that negotiation, we agreed to the increased density, but it put us over the number of lots, so we required and agreed that the smaller lots would all be sprinkled. At that time, the plat was set up with track numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, et cetera. And so we said certain tracks or sections would be sprinkled. Then, if you recall, a couple of years ago, the part on the east, a couple of those lots were included in one of the sections that we required to be sprinkled. We had a hearing and voted to remove the sprinkle requirement on those plats. Now what comes before us is, as Dennis pointed out, we're not going through the high-density area, and these are not high-density lots. These are large lots. Straight shot down the same deal. The number of lots are still well under the required number, and, like I said, we cut a deal once. I think we should honor it. I'd move approval of the application.
Second. Any further discussion, Commissioners?
Only, Mr. Chairman, that my vote in favor of the application has nothing to do with my advocacy for sprinklers on every house built.
Noted. Cast your votes. And you're approved.
Item 19, PUD 1569, application by Susan Winters to rezone 1100 Northwest 192nd Street.
Tim Johnson and David Bucks here on the behalf of the applicant. Oh, here's David. I'm going to let him take over.
I apologize. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an application that had been deferred several times to allow us to go meet with the neighbors. We've had a lot of communication back and forth with the neighborhood group that kind of borders us all around. And what we have is an old PUD. It's PUD 435, that what's left is a lot of almost unlimited commercial. What we are proposing is a mix of commercial and then some personal storage. And the personal storage would be what is up against the neighbors, and that's what a lot of the discussion was about. And so what we finally came to with the neighbors was we've agreed to some fencing along the border of our PUD, and we presented several options, and the neighbors selected one. It's going to be an 8-foot cedar fence capped with brick columns, and we met with the board of directors for the Homeowners Association. That is what they decided they wanted and liked. There are some provisions within the PUD that provide further comfort and restrictions on our PUD that will serve as a benefit to the neighbors. And some of those are addressed in the TE 4 and 5 that I would propose some modified language to clear it up. The way that they're written right now, I think, creates some confusion and conflict. What we would like TE4 to say is, personal storage structures shall be permitted to locate on the north and east boundary lines of Tract 1 and 2 for the purpose of screening. And so what we're saying is, we can use the personal storage buildings to screen on the north side here and along the east here, but pushing it away from the residential structures. We have a 50-foot building setback line within the entire PUD, pushing any structure at least 50 feet from the property line of those residential structures. And that's TE number 5 needs to be modified just so we make sure that the 50-foot building line is meant to be observed along the south and along the west side. Correct. So we have a 50-foot building line that's maintained throughout the PUD as it abuts that residential use. And with that, the neighbors were satisfied. We think this is a much better solution than the old PUD. Yes, we're adding personal storage, but I would submit that is a pretty nondescript neighbor, especially when you have the fencing that we're going to do and the limitations we have in the PUD. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
David?
Yes, sir.
There's one thing that you didn't address in the PUD and signs, and that is that there's no reference that EMD signs will or will not be permitted.
It's in there. They're not
Oh, I
permitted.
see it. No, pardon me. I was looking for another paragraph, but it's up there in the first part. I got you.
And they're limited to 8 feet, but no, I'm just kidding.
No one signed up, Commissioners.
So, one quick question, David.
Yes.
I received an email from a lady that's been communicating with me from the Homeowners Association. She indicates you've played nice and made peace. I want to thank you for that. You have not incorporated these sign specifics in the PUD at this point, have you?
I believe we have.
Not sign on fence.
Yes.
The 8-foot cedar fence. So do we need a TE to say it?
It's been, I believe what is in the staff report is not the most current. We've submitted it, and it hasn't been incorporated into your staff report, but the specifics on the sign, or on the fencing, has been incorporated.
Okay. That's wrong.
And we sent it to the neighbors first before we sent it to staff.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the application, noting that and amending, I guess, TE 3. It says tracks 1 and 3 for the purpose of site-proof screening. I'd like to just clarify that and say abutting the commercial areas on the north and east. And on TE4, I'd kind of like to do the same thing, that there's 50-foot building setback will be observed along abutting the residential areas on the south and west.
And west.
Yeah, we need to add and west.
That captures it.
Yeah, with those two changes, I'd move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve item 19 as just conditioned. Cast your votes, and that's approved.
Thank you.
And we need to deal with the introduction of the ordinance. Who's prepared to do that?
I thought we were continuing that.
Did we read that?
Well, we continued it in our earlier meeting. We should do it in this meeting. We need a motion in this meeting, right?
That's why I'm asking the question, but we also need a date.
What are you here on?
Well, I'm here on agenda item number 23.
23?
We're 22, and I didn't know if you were addressing, Mr. Chairman, 22 or 23.
We're on 22 at the moment.
That's what I thought.
23 will be coming up in a minute.
I'll move to continue the ordinance, which is item 22.
Continue it indefinitely until we get a date.
Till we get a date, right.
Second. We have a motion and a second to continue item 22 indefinitely. Cast your votes. And that's approved.
Item 23 is an ordinance to be introduced and set for hearing April 23rd. regarding de-annexing a 250-acre tract of land southwest of Frisco Road and Highway 66.
Now, if you give us your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Mike Sigler, and I'm the attorney for the City of Yukon, who is the applicant in this particular situation. The City of Yukon acquired approximately 253 acres on the southwest corner of Highway 66 and Frisco Road. To the east of the property that was acquired are the city limits of the City of Yukon. To the north of the property that was acquired are the limits of the city of Yukon. So this is contiguous or adjacent to the city on two different sides. What we've done is a number of different studies and moving forward into turning this property into a regional sports complex, a competitive fields competition for the region. We went to the annexation ad hoc committee last month, and they moved to recommend an approval for this. It's been through your Parks Department, your Fire Department, it's been through Development Services, it's been through Utilities. There's really not a lot of services that the City of Oklahoma City provides currently to this area, and not many services that are going to be provided in the near future. The City of Oklahoma City identified this general area as an area in need for this type of a park, and it might be that the City of Oklahoma City were going to put one in, but I guess instead of the City of Oklahoma City spending $50 million on one, then maybe Yukon would. Our request is for de-annexation for a number of different reasons, the main one of which is so that we can control our own destiny with regard to permitting and development and the manner of development. To the south of the property, I failed to mention, for the most part, is Interstate 40. There's a little strip, a little triangle in there that would not be in it. Our city managers have been in discussion with each other on the development of this property, along with the development of the property on Check Hall and 10th Street, which you addressed, I think, is item number 12 today. That property is going to develop commercially. Several years ago, the City of Oklahoma City and the City of Yukon agreed on annexation and de-annexation of 10th Street, so we didn't have these dividing roads, and we're in the process now of doing that for a number of different roads. But it's our request that this ordinance receive a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. We'll move to the City Council, hopefully, and have our annexation ordinance in place to be effective immediately upon the de-annexation of the City of Oklahoma City, this property, about the middle of July. And I'm ready for any questions that you might have.
Well, this is the first of two hearings we'll have. We set it for introduction today, as you know, and we'll hear it on the 23rd of the month.
Sir.
I see some staff have come in. Are you here to address us on this item, Kenneth?
Yes, sir. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Ken Bryan. I'm a planner with the City of Oklahoma City's Planning Department. Let me preview, or I guess highlight some of the important issues from the staff report and the staff evaluation that we've done. Mr. Sigler referenced the background of this project, and we went through a process where we meet with city departments and discuss the details and incorporate their feedback and take that to the City Council Ad Hoc Committee on Annex and De-Annex. Usually includes council members from the affected wards or nearby wards. In this case, the site is in Ward 3. You can see it here on the aerial here at Frisco Road and Highway 66. The prevailing use in the area is farmland. Most of it is active. Yeah, there we go. On the site itself, there appears to be two active well sites as well as an inactive site. Looking at the zoning, in Oklahoma City, most of the area is zoned AA agricultural. The site itself, as well as the surrounding area, there's some industrial use near the interchange at Cimarron Road, and it's zoned appropriately. The PUD you see there is I-2 uses and with modifications for screening, landscaping, and facade. So consistent with the other kind of light industrial development. The City of Yukon has quite a bit more going on their side, on the east side of the site in their city. The areas shown in white here that's Yukon's representation of their agricultural zoning. So most of the area shown is ag, but you can see that Yukon is proceeding with development to the east with single-family subdivision, restricted commercial, PUDs, their Main Street corridor, their downtown CDB, you can see on the far right of the map, and zoned as appropriate. As far as our services, Oklahoma City does not have a lot of services out in this area. Obviously, it's a rural part of the city, so that's as you would expect. I've zoomed out here on this map to show that there is some water and sewer out that way. The city ran a water line in the 70s to C.E. Page Airport, so that's what you see here on the left side of the map. The sewer lines shown there are Oklahoma City sewer lines, but they're not connected to the overall system or the treatment that Oklahoma City provides. Looking at transportation, so the site sits between two interchanges, one on Cimarron Road and one at Cemetery Road from Interstate 40. I've also pulled way back here so we can look at the extent of the bike facilities that Oklahoma City has. That's shown in purple, both trails and routes. The transit line, you can just see transit in the bottom right of the map. Route 38 comes out to North Council Road. Obviously, we have no long-term plans or no immediate plans to extend those types of services from multimodal transportation out towards this area. Police and fire do obviously serve this area. It is in the city of Oklahoma City. In the past 5 years, there's been several Priority 1 calls for police service. Their average response time is 23 minutes. A few more calls for fire service in the area with an average response time of 12 and a half minutes. The nearest fire station is Station 33. It's more than 6 miles to the southeast. So that explains some of their response time. You might be curious about the new fire station. It's on Richland Road. Well, it doesn't exist yet, but the land is on Richland Road near Southwest 59th Street. So that's 6.5 miles to the south of this site. All right, this project is a lot about parks. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the park system and the 2013 Parks Master Plan. I wanted to show what the existing parks are in the neighborhood as far as Oklahoma City goes. So the Wood Run complex that you see there near the middle of the map is a series of neighborhood parks. So neighborhood parks typically have a service area that we just say is as walking distance. Obviously, those parks are not designed to serve the site in question. It's just there because they exist there. Route 66 Park there on the west side of Lake Overholser is another story, however. That's a metropolitan park and has a very large service area, so would include neighboring jurisdictions, including the city of Yukon in this example. On the next slide, we should see a map from the Parks Master Plan. So this is their assessment of regional park needs in Oklahoma City from a citywide perspective. So the red circles that you see were areas that process identified as needing a future regional park. The sports complex that Yukon is discussing is that type of facility. So if we can go to the next slide, we'll see that a little more detail. So you can see the site is very close to the circle that was drawn there for needing an additional or needing a future regional park. The pink and purple areas near the middle, those are areas of either existing population or projected future population that have low or projected to have low access to a regional park. So that generates kind of that area that might need a future regional park. So it's reasonable to assume that a facility that Yukon's proposing would meet at least a portion or most of the demand in that area. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about service efficiency. I've already, I think, made the point it's difficult to serve this area just because of its development condition as it exists now and how far away it is from kind of some of our main facilities. So we're going to step through this relatively quickly. So looking at fire, the green area is fire's urban response kind of time, I guess, and the yellow is rural response time. So those areas shown in red would be outside the fire's ability to respond consistently to their level for rural areas. And you can see that they projected the response for the new station there on South Richland Road, and doesn't quite reach the area that the site sits in. Next, looking at police service, they're beholden to the kind of the urbanization level to provide efficient service. So higher levels of transportation network connectivity and presence allow them to respond more efficiently. So that's why you see some of the green areas there out in this part. Those are areas that have developed, and they can get where they need to go in a pretty efficient manner. So you would imagine as this area urbanizes, police will be able to respond more efficiently. Water service, the areas shown in green either have service or are within very short distance to the existing water system. The area shown in red indicates that it's difficult to serve this area with water, and what we mean by that is significant investment in mains, booster stations, and or storage tanks will be required to provide a reasonable level of water service. Next, sewer. Again, the area shown in green, existing sewer is available. Areas shown in red are typically basins that are not currently served and will require significant investment of infrastructure such as trunk lines and treatment capacity to provide sewer service. Combined city efficiency, so this is more of the same story out here because when we combine all those major services and weight by budget, as you would expect, it's difficult to serve this area in the short and mid-term mostly because of a lack of infrastructure. We have no plans to extend infrastructure to that area. So the current comprehensive plan has this area as a rural development area with an industrial land use designation. Highway 66 and Interstate 40 are both appearance corridors. So without going into the details about the potential compatibility with those things in play, that would be what we'd be looking at as far as evaluating development in this area. Other relevant information from the current plan is that it supports mutually agreeable annex and de-annexation, so that's mutually agreeable between us and the adjoining jurisdiction, in which case, obviously, we have that. And it supports effective and efficient roadway maintenance as far as right-of-way. And I've got a map showing that example here shortly. Additionally, you might have heard we're working on a new comprehensive plan. That plan also supports changes to municipal boundaries where it's efficient to do so and improves our ability to provide service and supports regional cooperation. So council wanted me to highlight some of the benefits or summarize the benefits associated with this project. So avoids service duplication. Mr. Sigler referred a little bit to that. So the sports complex satisfies some of the demand identified in the Parks Master Plan for the city of Oklahoma City. It's worth noting that a significant portion of its service area actually will be within the city of Oklahoma City. UConn will assume sole responsibility for portions of the nearby portions of Frisco Road and Highway 66. The city boundary currently is down the center line of both of those facilities, so that simplifies the right-of-way. As a regional destination, this facility will sit between two highway interchanges, so you could reasonably expect an increased level of activity at those two interchanges, and that might be mutually beneficial to both our jurisdictions in the future. The companion agreement that will be a parallel item with this item. Talks about retail at the sports complex. UConn has agreed that they're not going to try to make a retail on the corner, although retail will be ancillary to the sports complex and is a necessary use to support its activities. And then the improvements to Northwest 10th and Check Hall Road will help facilitate some commercial development in Oklahoma City. Citizens, one of the question came up whether Oklahoma City citizens would have access to the facility. Obviously, it will be a public facility. That will be documented in the agreement as well. There are a few costs when we go changing our boundary. We have to update the 911 system and make sure that our response knows which side of the boundary things are on. A lot of the GIS systems will have to be updated, but so those are kind of some management and operational costs that will incur going forward with action like that. The question about precedent came up.
Excuse me, do we have any idea what those costs are?
I think they're mostly associated with staff time.
Then hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, do we have a ballpark figure?
Not really. I may be more equipped to answer in terms of hours. I mean, it's probably a couple weeks worth of work from GIS and a couple of people in planning and over at Public Safety. So it's not like a gargantuan effort. It's just something that has to be done. So, good question. Thank you. So the council member wanted to make sure that we're not setting a precedent for any area that we can't efficiently serve with just de-annex, because there's lots of areas of the city, not just this one, that are rural in nature and are not necessarily efficient to provide with urban services at this time. I think the precedent that we're more interested in here is if a neighboring jurisdiction is proposing to provide a significant public amenity and meets a known demand for Oklahoma City and the region as well, that's kind of a different scenario and would probably initiate a discussion versus areas that are just inefficient to serve or inefficient service levels. So here's just a quick snapshot of the current boundary. As I said, it's along the center line of Frisco Road and Highway 66. And if the proposed action is approved, on the next slide it should show the boundary as it will appear. So you can see there that, oh, can you go back one? Oh, thank you. That Highway 66 and Frisco Road will sit fully within the city of Yukon. So it's kind of a image that describes the situation that we'll be facing. As far as next steps go, if Planning Commission will have the option to, or will take action and set a hearing, so the public hearing will be in 2 weeks, if that's approved. And as we continue to coordinate with the city of Yukon on the effective date of the ordinance, the item will be introduced at City Council. It's an ordinance, so it's the three-step process: introduction and first hearing at Council in May, and their second hearing and action in early June.
Ken, thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
It's interesting, all the different issues that get covered and analyzed. Obviously, there's a fiscal benefit to us, frankly, by not having to provide certain services at that corner of the city. Be interesting to see that quantified, just because it's something that I think I'd really like to see the city council focus on. But it sounds like an entirely appropriate step for the city to take for the benefit of Yukon and Oklahoma City both. Any questions of Mr. Segler?
Move set.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to set for hearing on the 23rd. Cast your votes, and that is done.
I wasn't sure if I was...
Sir?
I wasn't sure if it was appropriate to move to accept or move to recommend approval after all the detail he's given us.
That concludes the items for individual consideration. Planning Commission members? Planning Department is absent, mostly. Development Services? Municipal Council? Citizens to be heard? Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned at 3:07.